All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Aurora's podcast, Children's Books and Adult Discussion. Here we discuss life lessons we can grasp from children's books and how the content can be used to develop and enhance our worldview. If you have any resources you think we should add in addition to what I put in the description, please add them in the comment section when this is posted to YouTube. This is an open discussion. Let's keep it respectful. At the end of the day, it is about sharing perspectives, educating, and helping each other so that we can affect how we relate these messages to our children. Once you review on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button, share, and subscribe. So today's book is Goodnight Moon. I'm going to add that link for the read aloud in the description. So before we jump on in to looking at the messages in this book, I just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to all the ladies. You are a mother to someone, even if you don't have kids.
Thank you.
Happy Mother's Day to you.
Happy Mother's Day also to everyone.
So if anyone would like to comment before we get into it, go ahead. I'll start. This is one of my favorite books as a kid. And I love to read it right before bedtime because it was just so calming. It had no good guys, no bad guys. You know, nothing that was going to give me a bad dream. So one of my favorites. If no one else has any comments. My first thought on this book, as a kid, like I said, I loved it because it was just so nice, peaceful, very soft. And as an adult, the whole time I'm reading this book to my daughter and I'm like, I wish this kid just go to sleep. Why this kid won't go to sleep? So it's like a different perspective as a parent. So for all my parents here, what did you do, or what kind of, whether it be books or something you did with your kid to make them go to bed?
Can you hear me?
I cannot. Oh, there we go. Welcome. Looks like we lost someone. Could you repeat that, please?
I said I use the pacifier.
Hey, pacifier.
What breed are we talking about?
Doesn't matter. I know in some cultures, and I ain't gonna say mine's is off the list. Everything from Benadryl, a little sip of something, running around, driving in the car, all these different methods that we have used.
Because I'm a big schedule, I had a really stringent routine with the boys. Most of y'all know I have 3 sons, but I have a very stringent routine, which incorporated dinner, a bath time. We had a CD back when CDs were popular. We had a CD called African Lullabies, and as soon as they heard that hum, that African hum at the beginning, they would kind of like whine a little bit because they knew it was bedtime. They knew, but my kids also did pacifiers. They did pacifiers for a long time, longer than they should have them. But being a busy mom, I did incorporate reading, so I would read stories. But they knew once the lullaby came on, once that ooh na na, you can look it up on YouTube now. Once they heard that ooh na na, they already knew, and within maybe I would say 15 minutes of hitting play, they were like pretty much knocked out after bath, dinner, read a book, pacifier, and African lullabies. But I also They slept in bed with me for a very long time, and that helped a lot too. They slept in bed, and when they would fall asleep, I would actually get out my own bed and do what I needed to do. But they slept in bed with me.
Awesome, awesome. Kind of wheeling back because I had a talking group and I had kind of thrown this out there with them, and we went at length about the know what I even want to call it, the whole giving them a little something something, like I mentioned earlier, especially for my moms that were, I would say, over age 50 in their cultures. A little drink, a little alcohol, like I said, the Benadryl, stuff like that. And it got me to really questioning when we are giving kind of things that will take the ability to self-soothe out, the kind of things that can lead to, even with the pacifiers, which is one of the reasons I didn't let my child have a pacifier. But this is way more extreme than that. So just anyone want to respond on that? Just once you have something set up where you're kind of taking that away from the child, that ability to self-soothe. So the question is, what are your thoughts on parents that would give their child something to make them, I guess, calm down and go to bed? Something a little bit more extreme than a pacifier, like I was mentioning earlier with the Benadryl or some other, means of making them docile and go to sleep.
I think it depends on the child and the parent and exactly what is being given. Because, some kids, they do have to get that in order to go to sleep, but it's prescribed by a doctor, not something that you just buy in the store and give it to them. Once they, like if you find out your child got ADHD and, they need that certain medicine to calm them down, then that's fine. But I don't believe in giving the child Benadryl or, alcohol, none of that, any of that. The pacifier is probably the most extreme or craziest thing that I would give. So I think after a while that becomes dangerous to the child and the parent, because once the parent learns that can help the child to go to sleep, after a while the child will need a stronger dose in order to get them to go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? And once you give them a stronger dose, that becomes really dangerous. And it can cause issues for the child and the parent. If the child is not going to sleep, that means that parent has to be up all night with that child. That'll affect their work, that'll affect their sleep schedule. It causes a lot of chaos in the long run. I get, it's great at the moment, but a lot of people don't think of the long term effects on the child and the parent.
Absolutely. I definitely feel like they don't think about that at the time. It's just, them getting peace, the parent. But yeah, once that child gets older, just from constantly being medicated, and with melatonin, constantly having something that was probably not diagnosed to make them just be calm. Now they're an adult, and that's the only thing they can think to do is find something to calm them or to make them, not just in a state of sleep, but just in a state of peace.
I wanted to add that I think oh no. Sorry, I got a phone call. I thought it bumped me off. I definitely think that Gloria's on the best track, like always having a routine, um, and making sure that there's some quiet time before bed, because you can't have kids playing around or roughhousing and then expect them to like immediately like shut that down. There needs to be a quiet period. And for some people that might be allowing them to watch TV, for some parents might be like, we're going to have a reading time or a quiet time. But yeah, just setting that aside. I think we are creatures of habit, and your brain is signaled by a number of different things. It's like even as adults, like coffee in the morning or smelling food or baking, like, ooh, it's breakfast time. And I think especially for kids, because they're still so new, and they're learning how to, their body's learning how to regulate everything, whether it be emotions, how to use through environments, every cue that they get from the world is filtered through a really small lens, and you're forming habits in how you raise them up. So definitely, I think just being on a schedule for what time we go to bed and what happens in those hour or two before bedtime, that can help really just set the tone.
Angelique, I think I heard you mention turning on the TV. Now, when they were smaller, those routines were easier set when they were younger, because they're small and you can kind of be like, this is what you have to do. But as they got older, and I still had a very busy schedule, as they got older, they had to learn how to self-soothe because they couldn't be in my bed anymore. It got to a point where they couldn't be in my bed for other circumstances, and which was very hard, weaning them out, almost like how the mention of using a substances like NyQuil, things like that, and then how Destiny was saying that you have to increase the dosage and make it stronger. It's the same thing when you're using TV, or they're used to snuggling up against a mother or a warm body. An addiction is formed. And what we are not aware of the effects later on when you have to break that addiction. Now, I think it's easier to break the addiction of a pacifier, and I think it's easier to break the addiction of being close to mommy's body than an addiction to NyQuil or an addiction to melatonin. But they're all addictions. No matter how they look, those things, babies have to learn how to self-soothe, but you also have to be careful and make a balance, because brain development is happening. So they do need to be touched and soothed and coddled, because that there's brain research to show that the more you talk to your children, they learn how to do those things on their own. They learn how to self-soothe. But ripping them out of the bed initially was devastating to them. It was devastating, but they learned mechanisms to self-soothe. And then one of the other things as they became older, TV. And now to this day, even I'm soothed by noises in the background, TV, radio, and that's other things that I know other parents use. People can't sleep without a TV on or without a fan on. Everybody has some mechanism, some coping mechanism. So I don't want people to think just because, she had a routine, and I think it is the best way. However, there was that sleeping in the bed with the parent. That's a really hard habit, an addiction to break, because they are used to it, and it takes a long time to break that.
Yeah, you're right. I understand.
Okay. In this book, the author purposely focused on the simplicity of the familiar, which is why I believe children and adults find it so captivating in this age of complexity. What in your space as adults really grounds you and keeps you in the present and puts you in a relaxed state of mind?
In terms of just in general, or like, sometimes honestly just like quiet or like peaceful music, like classical music. Sometimes sitting outside and just feeling the sun or getting fresh air or listening to the birds.
Yes.
Just conversation or playing games on my phone.
Like for those who have smaller children, I mean, even old adult children, do you find that kids have that kind of thing or space at this time in history? Because I just feel like we have so much technology. We have computers, we have this kind of society where constant stimulation. So
Mm.
a child, asking a child to self-soothe, it's a lot harder than it used to be when you have so much around you all the time. Do you think children actually have that?
I think some children do. I think children who have parents that set boundaries, it's easier for those children to self-soothe than it is for those who don't have boundaries. Because when you, like Gloria said, when you have a routine, you know that at certain times, certain things have to be done. So like if it's time to go to bed, then you have to lay in the bed. Some people read, some people close their eyes, some people talk. Some people watch TV. But that boundary is set there that it's time to go to bed, so I have to go to bed. But when your parent doesn't set those boundaries, you can have that child that's up all night watching TV or playing a game and don't get no sleep at all. Or with anything else. Like even when it's time to do your schoolwork, instead of doing your schoolwork, you focus on other things so your schoolwork doesn't get done.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I think parents need to be aware and set boundaries. And just because we have societal norms, it doesn't mean you have to go with the flow. I think it's really important to question where our society is going and how much you want to participate in that. Because to a certain degree, to stay plugged into the social system in general and life, unless you want to live like completely off grid, there's certain technologies you're going to have to adopt to a degree, but you can determine how far you want to take it. I think it's wild when I see things on TV about parents who have like 12 and 13-year-olds who are under the covers with their phone at like 3 a.m. talking to friends. Like, why do they take the phone away? Like, why do you allow them to have the phone? Or maybe they've lost phone privileges. A 12 or 11-year-old doesn't necessarily need a smartphone. But yeah, I definitely agree. It's just about setting those boundaries, because some kids don't have that. Especially if their parents feel stressed or over busy, it's very easy to have their kid with a tablet or something in the corner or always entertained. And I think a lot about the things that entertained me when I was a kid that I don't think most kids nowadays would even hold their attention for 5 seconds. Coloring in a coloring book. Or even like going outside and like picking clovers or whatever, digging in the dirt, looking at earthworms, collecting rocks. But yeah, I definitely think it's important to be aware of how technology is changing us as a people. That's all.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
do.
Go ahead.
I really wanted to pick up on what Angelique said, because I had these really set boundaries and these good routines for my boys when they were little. But as they got older, I'm tired. I'm in college, I'm in the military, I'm working. I was tired. So when they got to like that preteen age, and she's right, I did have the 12-year-old under the covers with the phone. I did. And when I did, I would go to bed, and to this day, to this very second, I go to sleep before my kids. I'm in the sheets at 8:30, and
Wow.
here I found out that they were up 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So there were times throughout their preteens and teens, I found out what they were doing at night to self-soothe. Oh, and I did have to take phones. I did have to shut down phones, because it was easy. Like Angelique was saying, it was easier. Yo, you 12, you're responsible, you're an A student, you go to school every day, you're not doing anything bad. And so here, yeah, have the phone. And then when they were 12, 13, I'd be like, okay, no more phones after 9 o'clock. But how are you going to enforce that when I'm going to bed at 8:30? How am I enforce a 9 o'clock shutdown time? And I'm asleep at 8:30. So as a parenting ain't for the weak. And I've had this conversation with many people. A lot of people are breeding their children. They're not raising their children. So when I tell you the struggle was real when I found out what they were doing on the phone after 9 o'clock and they knew my mama's asleep. She ain't getting up to take this phone. She ain't getting up to take this phone because she is not completely out. So there is a dangerous realm in that. Even when you think you got trustworthy kids, kids that are doing well in school, kids that are athletic or participating in extracurricular activities, and you think, oh, they 12, 13, they got their sleep pattern down pat. They're not 8 years old anymore. They can get up in the middle of the night, go pee, go back to bed, go get their water. They do that on their own. They're not asking for that. So I had a false sense of a false sense of security, thinking, okay, my kids are trustworthy. At 9 o'clock, they power them phones down, and they are not asleep. Not true. And I found out one night when one of my sons, you just get up, you have to go to the bathroom, go get something to drink, and he was sleeping, and literally the phone, the screen of the phone was lit up, and it had fallen onto his face. He was asleep. But the phone screen was bright and on and literally on top of his face. And that is how he fell asleep. And then after, that, I discovered what exactly they were doing on the phone. So, yeah, the struggle is real. Parenting is a struggle and it doesn't end because you think it gets easier. No, let me stop lying. It gets easier when they get older, but your job is not done. You still got to double check. You got to go behind and check and recheck and overcheck to make sure that they're doing things that are healthy for the development of their adult habits. So, yeah, I did do the let them have the phone under the covers because at 14, 15, I'm like, well, darn, I ain't about to spank you and you ain't bothering me. So, yeah, I mean, raising children is not for the weak. That is not for the weak.
Yeah, Angelique brought up a lot of good points. A lot. Another one I was standing out to me when she was talking about the dirt, going outside, playing in the dirt. If anything in this book, it'll make you really appreciate the little things. And little Bunny had a lot to be thankful for when he just kind of did an inventory of what was just in his room. And I just feel like kids nowadays, aside from getting that talk around Christmas time when, the parent may not have it like they want to have it, they're like, you got a roof over your head type of thing. Merry Christmas. Our kids nowadays really, I guess, appreciating the little things in their life because there's so much out there now. It's like the little things, like a rock, some dirt, mud, don't seem to really matter. Do you feel like your kids appreciate the little things?
I think she does appreciate it, but I don't think she understands that she appreciates it. If that makes sense, because we don't do like the over the top gifts. Pretty much the gifts are like age appropriate and stuff that she like actually wants, and most time educational.
We can barely hear you. Could you come a little closer?
Can you hear me now?
It's still very low. Is it just me? Are you guys hearing her clearly?
Can you hear me now?
A little better.
But what I was saying was, I think she does appreciate it, but I don't think she understands that she appreciates it. Because she does like to go outside, play in the dirt, play with her sisters and cousins and stuff like that. And around the holidays and even her birthday, we don't do the over the top gifts. Everything is mostly age appropriate and like educational. So I think she appreciates when we, let her go outside and, make mud pies and play dirt and stuff like that. But I don't think she understands exactly what she appreciates. I'm like,
That is great to hear, especially during this pandemic when everybody's a germaphobe. Letting the kid just play in the dirt and be a kid. That's becoming more and more of, a luxury. And then especially like we were saying earlier, when you can just give them a tablet and put them in the corner. Why even go through the hassle of putting them in something that they can get messy, give you more work to do? But yeah, that's what kids need to be a kid, you know? That will also help them to understand and appreciate other things. When you kind of take it back to the coloring book, taking it back to just going outside, simple things. I mean, because though this technology is not going nowhere, where our general society trajectory headed is not going anywhere. But as my ladies earlier said, boundaries, especially making sure things are age appropriate. Because that's another huge issue that you have when you start talking about you're not even monitoring what they're doing with any of the tablets, phones, or whatever. They may be getting things and messages that are totally inappropriate and putting their mind, their young, valuable brains somewhere that they shouldn't be at a young age. Even at an older age, just like maybe you haven't had a talk with them, but they're being exposed to something that they don't fully understand. So now it's like they kind of gotta either figure it out on their own, or that's just another lesson that gets missed between the child and the adult.
I just want to go into what Destiny was saying about how, you know, she raised a child that does like outdoors, and that she doesn't know what if she appreciates it, but she knows she likes it. So I was listening, their cognitive development, they really don't express that kind of gratitude, and you don't see it yet. But the value of that, which I think my boys miss, because they did have a life saturated with just extra, like extra for no reason. Video games and, lots of technology around them, constantly handheld, in the house, in their hand, in the car, just constant like technology. And even though I got three kids, they're three drastically different. The older one does appreciate, you know, he can appreciate, and not like I'm different because my kids are older. You know, you were specifically gearing the question toward people with younger children, but they were young at one point, and when they were younger, I can honestly say I introduced technology way too early, way too early. And those things develop and formulate addictions. And now my boys could be on video games 12 hours in a day and don't flinch, won't shower, won't eat, nothing. And it is their way to self-soothe. Um, every now and again, we'll have storms here, the power outage, and they really go bananas, berserk once those batteries run out and they no longer have access, and they don't want to go outside. They don't want to, they just really are irritable and just sleep until electricity is restored. So I think there is a very important conversation to be had moving forward for young mothers, young parents, about the detriment of gaming on young children, or just technology, watching TV and not, you'll watch people outdoors, doing stuff all day on the TV, but won't go outside and do it. So I think there is a conversation to be had for
That's
younger
so
mothers who
true.
have a chance to you got a choice to how you gonna raise your kid. Because like with me, I think I made some dire mistakes in not having them be outside and not limiting the technology and teaching them how to self-soothe with natural things versus, choosing technology to self-soothe.
That is a very good point. Thank you, Gloria. I was just mulling over in my head, like, what do you do now? Because they get tablets from daycare. I mean, especially when the pandemic started, because they just sent them home to just about, I think, all households who were registered in any daycares, especially if they were of the state. They had those little smart tablets that it kind of had educational games and stuff for the kids that they were supposed to monitor, but that's like age 3, 4. It's so early now. You as a parent almost don't even get to put up that boundary because especially if you're doing the dual learning now, it's par for the course now. That's the way our society is moving. You don't even have a choice. So what do you do now as far as setting boundaries so that you can make sure that your child gets a chance to have those simple experiences and appreciate the other things around them that don't light up or have batteries?
I think the mistake that a lot of parents, well, I'm not gonna, well, a lot of parents make is thinking they don't have a choice. I think there always is a choice, even though that choice may be a little bit more difficult for you and the child. But in the long run, it's the best option for the child. So you always have a choice. Like you said, they're doing dual learning now, but you can always speak to the teacher and say, listen, I don't really like my child on the tablet for such a long period of time. Is there any way we can split it where, she's on the tablet 3 hours a day and the rest is maybe worksheets or workbooks that she can turn in, at the end of the day or the end of the week. You just have to find what best suits your child. That's another thing too. Finding what works for your child. Some children they can't sit in front of a computer all day and grasp that information. Some children need to be hands on, and you have to take your time and present it in front of them so they can actually see it rather than just looking at it on the screen.
Absolutely. Great point with just communication between the parents and teachers. Very, very important. Coming out of daycare, that was one of the things I did the most. I was very in touch with my kids' teachers and the administration. It gotten harder because of COVID. There's a lot of lapse in communication, even just availability. But that is very important. You are right. Parents do have a choice, and we need to exercise it.
I wanted to add that I think also children emulate what they see. So if you want to foster an environment where your child isn't tied to a screen, majority of the day, then you also may have to assess your own habits and really just create that environment. And it could be starting with small things like we don't, no screens at the dinner table. We're going to sit and talk. And even if you're done eating, dinner time is from this time to this time. You can't just eat and leave. And those things can be hard to, I'm sure that there's fighting and those things aren't always easy to enforce, but I think it forces you to reflect on how attached you are to your screens and your devices.
Good point. Good point.
I really want to go back to what Destiny was saying about people think they don't have a choice. And, being a teacher in this environment, teaching kids online, It is so detrimental to their social emotional well-being. And like I've been complaining since day one, y'all being extra. While we got these kids on the computer on a normal school day, 7:45 in the morning to 3:45 in the afternoon. Why? Why? There's no building transitions inside the building. Like I just felt like there wasn't a powerful enough force with the parents to come forward and say, this is too much time on a computer. This is too much time. We could have done AB schedules where they do two subjects on Monday, Tuesday, two subjects on Wednesday, Thursday,
Wow.
and catch up on Friday, something like that. But as a teacher, I think it's inhumane to have, and I teach middle schoolers, inhumane to have a child sitting at a screen with 5-minute breaks in between hour-long classes. Then the teacher's got to be creative and figure out something to keep them engaged. You've been sitting on a computer for 6 hours.
I didn't even
That's
think about that, but yeah,
inhumane.
that's like an adult at like a job chained to a desk.
Right. That's inhumane. And I'm just like, not enough parents came together and was like, yo, we not doing this. Find a different way. Because it's strength in numbers. I've been saying this since I started in education. And I know the South is a little bit slower than the rest of the world. But I just feel like if more parents, oh, another point. I had a squirrel moment. A lot of parents want their kids on the computer from 7 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon because they don't want to be bothered. And I have actually had parents complain, oh, that teacher logged off early. They logged off so your child could go pee. They logged off early so your child could walk around the house and come back. Why you logging off early with my kid? I told your kid to do 20 jumping jacks, go drink some water, and come back and log on with their next teacher. And people are really angry. So you have two groups of people. One, feeling like I feel this is inhumane. Y'all being extra and you didn't have to keep these kids on from sunup to sunset on these computers. Then there's another group of parents that like, yo, as long as you on the computer with them, I ain't got to deal with them. So I really do believe that we're moving into because of COVID and how long it lasts, we're moving into some dangerous social territory when it's time to go back outside. When it's time to go back outside, we're gonna be walking into some really socially awkward moments because kids have been stuck on these computers for so long.
Mm, I didn't even think about that. You just brought up so many valid points. I also think that like this is just a broader comment. Um, Ironically, I think that our educational system trains us to be like those parents who like if like not enough people, like you said, not enough people came together who were like, this isn't going to work. Like, can we do an AB schedule or something? I think that our educational system actually kind of trains people to be like that, to think that they don't have to do it, they can't say anything, or that this is just the way it is, and to not like go against the grain.
I definitely agree. And we definitely need to band together. But like you said, you have both ends of the spectrum because you have parents that don't want to deal. How you deal with that?
Some of them maybe can't deal, especially if they're working from home too, and they're trying to navigate or juggle that. I don't even know what the answer is.
I think
I,
oh
I,
I think COVID brought out I think COVID gave us all an opportunity to deeply reflect on what we're doing with ourselves and our kids. First of all, we really realized real quick that employers, it didn't take all that because we're able to get the same amount of work done effectively with a lot less man hours being present. The travel distance, all of that stuff has been able to be drastically decreased, and COVID showed us that. For instance, teachers were teaching remotely, And at one point, we were not in our buildings. We were at home on the couch teaching and teaching effectively. And it showed us real quick that it didn't take all that. We could have decreased bullying a long time ago. We could have decreased a whole bunch of stuff a long time ago because the technology has been here. But it also showed us how disengaged we really are and how we don't care. We're just trying to get by. And like, you can't fix something. If a parent is overwhelmed and that teacher being on the line with their kid for 8 hours, that parent can soothe or work or whatever. There's, to me, there's no fix until we realize that the entire system is broken. And that's a bigger conversation. I've
Yeah.
always been having this conversation about capitalism with other groups and other friends because I have a Zoom group that I meet with some people in Texas. And we've been talking about how capitalism has had a deeply negative impact on the family, on self esteem, on children, on everything. The whole system is broken. And I mean, this is very, I don't know, like far fetched in my thinking, but we need to throw the whole system away. Because having kids, first of all, if you at home at your house, like I thought it was ridiculous, and I would keep telling the kids, why are you asking me to go to the bathroom in your own house? Kids didn't even have the ability to critically think, I gotta pee. I, I don't need to ask permission to pee from my own house. Get up and go pee. We have been teaching these kids so long not to think for themselves. Don't think. Ask somebody for everything. Now they're in their own house. How ridiculous, Miss Brown, can I go pee? Really? Who gonna stop you from going in your kitchen and getting a snack? Who gonna stop you? And but their minds are so droned out, so conditioned to just take orders. And the parents are thinking like, oh, what do? We have no choice but to make our kids sit on a computer 8 hours a day. Not true. All it takes about 5 parents to go to a school board meeting and be like, what you're doing to our kids is inhumane. We don't want it. Change it now, or we'll get more parents on you. We can change it. We just choose not to because it's easier to go with the flow.
You're right. You're right. Um, I have to say, most people, and I'm not excluded, never know when the meeting's happening or where it's happening. I've actually had to do so much digging in my own neighborhood to figure out where, just like the community board is and what it's made of. And a lot of people forget that aside from what you see on TV with politics, what affects you the most is in your own neighborhood. And if you want to take the changes up the ladder, it needs to happen there first because it starts with your household, your community, then the rest of the neighborhood, and as you keep going on up. Because with that, you're building the numbers, you have a stronger force behind you, and you have other political officials because they're looking to get reelected. They're looking to have the community support, so they're listening. So I encourage everybody to do that. Get all the information for just where you are, your community board, your everything for your neighborhood, your state politicians. Go up the ladder, have it in a book written down. Because a lot of people, just like when it comes to who's going up in the Supreme Court, they don't know anything about these people until if they vote, until voting time comes, and then they're like skimming information. You're going by what you see on TV, but as always, you got to pick up, well, not anymore a book, but even if you're just Googling it, you got to read. You got to read because when it comes to news media, it's all about, talking points that are going to give them more ratings. So you have to do your research and then you have to make your voice heard and bring the numbers. Does anyone else have any comments? right, I'm going to wrap us up. I want to thank everyone for joining me today. Our next book is probably going to be live. So just a FYI, if you would like to add any links, like I said before, please add them on the comments. So you can even message me and I'll add it into the details. Again, thank you everyone and happy Mother's Day.